We are all gathered here in this space once again to commemorate the 30th anniversary of 16 Days of Activism. It has been 30 years since women rights activists and women working for gender-based violence prevention before us decided that the problem of widespread prevalence of violence against women is so much that we need to come up with coherent strategies and campaigns in order to eradicate this menace. And that is why they dedicated these 16 days and they started advocating for civil society organizations from different parts of the world to come forward, join forces, think creatively, brainstorm, and come up with creative interventions for the eradication of gender-based violence. And today we are here to talk about one such creative prevention strategy that can be utilized at different tiers and segments of the society for gender-based violence prevention. TABEER can be explained as an initiative under which we are trying to gather strong feminine and female voices in the fraternity to come forward and share their experiences and their strategies with us and people across the globe. Today, we are going to be talking about violence prevention education and how that can be instrumental in elimination or prevention of violence at personal level, familial level, and societal level. And it is about time that we exercise that power and say no to violence against women or gender-based violence in all its forms and manifestations. Without any further delay, I'm going to be introducing the guests for today. One of them is Judith, who is the founder of Empowerment Through Self-Defense Global and has been working on violence prevention education and empowerment through self-defense for more than 2 decades. We have Amna Munawar here with us, who is a qualified civil superior servant, a CSS officer, and she has extensive experience in different fields and holds a master's in international relations from Quaid-e-Azam University, Islamabad. She is also the president of a strategic think tank, which is called Center for Pakistan and International Relations Co-Pair, which work towards advancement of policy formulation and positive narratives in Pakistan. Amna, I would like to give you the forum to share your opening remarks with the people who are watching us live on Facebook.
Thank you very much, Dastak Foundation and the Youngsters team. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. First of all, I would like to introduce myself and how we can link this initiative with my own think tank initiative. Center for Pakistan and International Relations is a strategic think tank which is working on sustainable development goals. And women rights are, I believe, are the human rights, and human rights are the women rights. So if this is like every year, these are the days which we always celebrate and raise our voice for violence against women, and important initiatives. And then in this initiative, it is not only that we raise our voice, we need to conduct certain trainings and awareness programs so that the women who are unfortunately sidelines can also raise their voice. They should realize that what are their basic rights and how they can protect their rights against any kind of harassment. I'm just coming from the airport, so my signals are not very good. So I'm just using my audio Sri Lanka to Pakistan. So I'm on my way. So I tried to use my video, but it is not working. But I hope you can hear my voice properly. So I'll come to the point that many years back, we initiated a project, E-Women, empowering women through information technology, and a certain kind of a program which you are conducting, like especially at their workplace, how they can protect themselves. And then later we also work with various chamber of commerce and industries, and where, because the women business leaders, we conducted certain workshop with the federal ombudsman organization for harassment of women. Mentioned about the challenges and issues when we are conducting the workshop, and what are the challenges and issues with the women who face this harassment. So my first answer and my first recommendation and my first experience would be that when we were conducting these workshops, so that what we realized that sometimes we also need the support of the government, because like every year we celebrate this gender violence days, and we just turn on national media, and the government also back this thing, and there should be some sponsorship support from the government, that they just advertise that how women should be aware of their basic rights, so that women can raise their voice. Because sometimes there is a harassment, but women are not aware that where to go, where to raise their voice. And sometimes if they are asking their immediate bosses, so the immediate bosses, rather than helping them out, so there is a lobby against this system as well. So there are many challenges. And lastly, because we are also working, we are not only targeting the corporate sector, we need to see a very big sector which is working in our rural areas, in our far-flung areas, who are not having access, because we were usually having training through we were having online training for these awareness campaign, and for how they can protect themselves. But the issue was this, but in far flung areas, sometimes there is an issue of communication. There was an issue of internet connectivity, so we were not having the real and exact access to the people of the rural area and far flung area. And there their level of exploitation is very high, because it is not only the exploitation they are facing from their co-workers and from their bosses, but even for getting the job, because there is such a big issue of unemployment, that when they are seeking a job, whoever is influential in that area, they try to exploit the woman to the maximum to get her basic job done. So sometimes if she is the bread earner of 5 or 10 members of her family, so then she is easily exploited by these kind of harassment. Then we are also facing another kind of issues in our rural areas, that the women are being harassed by their other family members. And then again, due to the joint family system, they cannot raise their voice, because then the women of that family are also against them. So conducting those trainings and workshops, we realized that we need to come up with something a customized training program for the women of those area, with keeping in mind the culture tradition. Like, you cannot implement the same program which you are implementing in US. Your program needs to have a customized solution according to our culture requirements. Other than that, what I also felt that we also work and conducted another workshop, and also training programs in universities, colleges, and workspaces, which we called the cyber security scouts. The cybersecurity scouts was a volunteer program in which the women and girls are encouraged to help the other girls and women, that how they can get rid of the cyberbullying, and how they address this issue, what are the initiative taken by government, especially how the FIA is having a cybersecurity wing, to handle any kind of harassment through mobile texting, through online messages. So these were also the areas where women have been harassed, and we try to help them out. Now we are still working with different government organizations. This area is also developed. Here also there were two kind of issues, that sometimes there is a genuine case of harassment, but sometimes there is not a genuine case of harassment, but a male or another female is facing an issue of accusing themselves. So when you are creating this awareness, that so this awareness should be for the protection of the women, but the women should also play a very responsible role, that they should not blame another person. If his senior teacher is not giving good marks, so she accuse her teacher, or if her boss is not giving her some positive grades or credits and promotion, so she use it as a blackmailing too. So because when we actually handle many of the cases of harassment, especially the case studies in our districts, so and also collaborating with cybersecurity wing of FIA, so we realized that sometimes the men were also blamed for harassment. So this is also very important, that this, when we are raising the voice for those innocent women who have been harassed, but sometimes this is also on the other hand used negatively as well. So this is also another our cultural challenge, that the thing that how we can address it. My recommendation to Dastak Foundation, firstly, it's a very, very, very good initiative. My prayers, my best wishes for you. You must keep it on. If you need any of our assistance, we have already conducted the programs. We know the right trainers. We can guide you, and you must not only consider yourself to the urban areas, go to the rural areas, and even now we are also having like at the division level, like I give you an example, in Sargodha we are having 5 districts, so we conducted the program for 5 districts on women violence against women training program. So we can also assist you over there, and we can also suggest you that try to work on infographics, because infographic through the digital campaign can create a better awareness program as compared to lot of text and long speeches, because people are not going to understand it. Thirdly,
Certainly.
your mode thirdly, the mode of training should not be only in English, because when you are going to we are having a multilingual society, and we are having important provinces having their own language, so people understand those languages. So I just request that those your infographic campaign should be in different language, even with one liner, but a very strong message for the female. Thirdly, what I noticed, that when some issue occur, when there is an harassment issue, so women are not known and aware of the exact legal implication of those things. Like if it's a cyber security, if a cyber threat, or it's a cyber bullying or cyber harassment, that what is the procedure? They don't know that where they need to send their application. So this should be known. Similarly, the provincial government have developed their emergency line numbers. So what is the procedure? So when they are harassed, they're already panicked, they are upset. So the other problem is they don't know. So it takes time to register their application or FIR or anything, and it takes time to address that. Then also there we should raise our voice and work on some policy recommendations, so that in the corporate offices and all other offices and all other organizations, there should be a proper law, and there should be a proper implication of law, so that people should be deterred from indulging themselves in any kind of violence against women.
Thank you so much, Judith. I would like to have your opening remarks in order to move us forward to the Q&A session.
Great. First of all, I am absolutely honored that you've asked me to speak today. This is very exciting and very important work, so I applaud you on the work that you're doing. We have been working to build a network of empowerment self-defense instructors across the globe. And empowerment self-defense looks at the types of violence that women and girls are subject to on a daily basis. A little bit about me and my history. I was sexually assaulted by the cantor, a clergyman in our community. And as a 12-year-old, I didn't call it rape. I thought I was having a relationship with him, but I didn't understand. And for 6 years, this relationship really took my childhood down the wrong path. I ended up married to someone who was emotionally abusive and financially abusive and manipulative and all of the gaslighting and all of the things you can imagine, and was honored to be lucky, I guess, is what we really should say, to be asked to join a judo class for only women. And these were women who were very religious. So it was outside of what we normally, what a woman like us, a mom with little kids would do. But the head of our community said that it was okay, that it was actually important for us to learn how to protect ourselves. And he really had no idea what judo was. He just understood we were learning to protect ourselves. And over the years, I got more involved in women's self-defense through the National Women's Martial Arts Federation in the United States, and then got really excited of bringing it to my home, which is in Israel, where we opened an organization called El Halev, which means to the heart. And I think, I think there's something very spiritual about why it's called to the heart, because what we find that it's not really about the physical skills. Yes, the physical skills are important, but I believe I'm worth defending, that change of heart, that I believe that I'm capable of standing up for myself, that I believe I have a right to stand up for myself, that change of heart is really where the journey begins. So we then became experts in how to teach teachers. Because of the way the law is structured in Israel, in order to teach self-defense, you have to be certified as an official sports coach, which you can argue whether or not that's really necessary, but that's the reality there. But what it did is it forced LLF to really look at what is the best way to teach this. And I think a really important piece of that is understanding that there is the extreme violence, acid attacks, knifings, murder, which is, strangling someone to death, is real extreme attacks. But the majority of attacks look more like 1,000 paper cuts, chipping away at your soul, chipping away at your belief in yourself, chipping away at your freedoms, chipping away at until you can't even recognize yourself or how you got there, how you got to that place. And that actually, as what we've seen over the last 20 years, is a lot more prevalent than the horrible violence. So yes, all violence should end, no question about it. And yes, some of what we teach could help in an event of horrible violence. But where it really helps is getting me to understand how to navigate the world from a safer, stronger place. So empowerment self-defense is based on 5 basic principles of think, yell, run, fight, and tell. So think, is this good for me? Is this bad for me? Like how do we make a decision as to, did that person yelling a comment at me when I'm walking down the street, how did that bother me? How did that affect me? And how do I want to react? Should I react? But thinking through, or this member of my family talks to me in a demeaning way. Well, what does that do to my soul? What does that do to who I am and how I feel I should be, navigating the world? So what's going on here? And one of the techniques that we teach is literally standing there and getting to a place of, wait a minute, I'm aware that something's uncomfortable, and saying, even if I don't say out loud, saying what's going on here. Because what's going on here is about me assessing, am I comfortable or uncomfortable? And what can I do if I am uncomfortable? What do I want to do? Think, yell, use your voice. Now, while we say them in a linear fashion, think, yell, run, fight, tell, clearly it's not that simple. Sometimes you have to fight first because that's what's happening and you have to take care of it. Or sometimes you just automatically yell, wait, leave me alone, back off. And we teach how to do that too. But sometimes it's about saying, oh, wait a minute. Do I want to say something to my boss who has been standing way too close for way too long, and I'm really uncomfortable, and I feel like it's a bit of an intimidation process here. I'm not okay with this. So, and they've crossed the line, but they crossed the line a teeny weeny little bit. And yet, if I don't respond to that, if there are no consequences for that, well, maybe they're going to step a little bit further the next time. And while it's not my responsibility how that person treats me, their behavior is their behavior, their actions are their actions, and they're responsible for that. I do want to know how to respond. We teach women to be response able, to be able to respond to a situation that feels uncomfortable. But in order to respond, you also have to recognize it. So we teach how to recognize it. So think, yell, use your words, and use your words can be simply as, I don't like the way you're talking to me. This conversation's over. Think, yell, run. Yes. If you can get away from an uncomfortable situation, a scary situation, a dangerous situation, run. What we do know is I don't get to test how fast the other person is. So the actual physical running isn't always my best first option, because the last thing I want to do is turn my back to a person. So think, yell, run, get away if you can, fight, which has two spectrums to it. So there are 2 places where we talk about fight. One fight is, if somebody's trying to harm me, I have a right to fight back. And that can be the physical fight. And the other side of it is, wait a minute, somebody's not treating me well. Fight can be about getting into the ring, stepping up on the mat, going back to that boss or that professor or that person who's not treating you respectfully and saying, we need to talk about this because I'm not okay for you to treat me this way. So the fight isn't always the physical fight, but brings part of advocating for yourself. Think, yell, run, fight, tell. And the tell is no less important. Telling is about sharing our stories so that we can learn from them, and so others can learn from us about them, what we've done. Now, preventative strategies are about recognizing. And someone who has never lived in Pakistan or even Australia, can't come in and say, teach this, do this, and everything will be fine. Because I don't understand the culture. So when we recruit teacher trainees, we look for people who sit on the border between the cultures, who on one hand can learn what we're teaching on the how. It's not what we're teaching, it's the how we teach. How do we bring this through games, through practice, through repetition, through scenarios? How do we bring this work to a group? And then the special sauce is in them taking it, making it their own and making it appropriate for their culture so that it fits into their country, into their communities, because the scenarios then become things that are relevant to that local community. And I think one of the special pieces of what empowerment self-defense does is we take stories from the field, and if they're old stories that didn't end well, we're about giving them a new ending. If they're common stories that many women share in those communities and may or may not know how to respond to, we help them practice how do you respond in a situation like that. And of course, when we hear success stories that happen in local communities, we share that, we amplify that to show that it actually works. I believe that the biggest lie sold to women is that they cannot protect themselves, that there's nothing to do. He'll always be bigger and stronger, and it's just not true. And in many cases, the scenarios start or inappropriate behaviors start from very small inappropriate behaviors. We've been developing, so this body of knowledge really started to snowball in the early 70s. So we're talking about almost 50 years of teaching and learning and researching and fixing and making it better and seeing how to really teach ESD in a very strong, empowered way that makes a difference, that's got high efficacy rates. And then how do we teach teachers to get this out to where it belongs? So Corona hit and everybody was locked in. And within 5 or 6 months, we were seeing an escalation in domestic violence. Now, most of my colleagues were not surprised. We all went, yeah, of course. I mean, this is a recipe for domestic violence to rise. And yet, what do? Because we can't have the in-person classes that we've been so used to doing over the last 50 years. How do we take all of this amazing knowledge that we've got and distill it down into something that could fit into your phone, fit into your tablet? You know, how do we teach this in a way that I can bring it into your home, I can bring it into your pocket, I can put it in your hand? So the way we look at the app is really we have the structure of the class the way we've done. So it's 21 days of 7, depending on how deep, how much you want to practice. Each lesson is between 7 and 20 minutes. And for 21 days. But the content changes. So the scenarios change depending on the culture or depending on the location. And those are built by local teams. So really what we're doing is, instead of harvesting cucumbers and selling them in a supermarket, we're harvesting stories and using them to create content, taking old stories and giving them new endings, taking common stories and sharing them so that women can practice how to respond. Oh yeah, that happened to me before. And of course, taking success stories and showing how that ESD works, that this empowerment self-defense system really gives women and other vulnerable populations the skills they need to defend themselves in the best way possible. There is no perfect solution to violence other than nobody will ever be violent. And I'm pretty sure as I said that, many of you went, yeah, that's never going to happen. Like, really, will we ever get to 0 people in the world being violent? Probably not. Just like we're never going to get to 0 traffic accidents, and we're never going to get to 0 cancer. But what we can do is get as close to 0 as we can, because 1 in 3 is not acceptable.
Amna, my second question from you is, after your opening remarks and all the experience that you have shared with us of working with women and different people across the country, what do you think about violence prevention education in the socio-cultural context of Pakistan? What kind of strategies we can introduce here, and at what age it would be amazing, like which tier of the educational system we should aim at while introducing or acquainting our youth with such empowerment related interventions and techniques?
Thank you very much. I think the basic education, because we are also suffering from the issues of child abuse. So the basic education should start from the primary level. That is very important, that when the kids are in the junior school, through some cartoon campaign, through some activity like theatrical activity or something which create an interest among the students, there should be some kind of awareness, or so another thing which should be compulsory in high school as one of the subject, like PT is a subject, like exercise is a subject, but it is very important that there should be compulsory training on self-defense. And thirdly, then I believe I discussed in detail that we are having our own socio-cultural challenges, and according to our ecosystem, we need to design training according to our country requirements. And when we are targeting the corporate sector, the urban sector, the requirement, challenges, and training programs will be totally different than the training which we are going to conduct in the rural areas, in the far-flung areas, because their challenges are different. Here, women in urban areas are quite well aware. And I also suggest that there is a need of some standardized documents and a training manual, which can be utilized. Like if, let's suppose, Dastak try to come up with this initiative, so that training manual can be utilized by other institute as well, that they have done something and they should get the benefit out of it. So I suggest that there should be somebody who should take one step ahead and become the role model for conducting these training.
I'm going to move towards Judith once again. You shared your story and how you started working towards ESD. In a country like Pakistan, we have a massive problem of victim blaming and victim shaming. And victim blaming and victim shaming is something that prevents women from taking that first step that is needed to break that spiral of violence. So I would like to share, would want you to share something, for women, because most of us are, majority of the women in our country are just that, are away from taking that one step that can change their life.
Fantastic. Actually, it's really very timely that you asked me this question, because I'm sitting in a guest house in the south of Israel. A team of volunteers have come down for the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, in order to help a woman who's being held hostage in a marriage she wants to get out of, by going in and giving her what we're calling an extreme start over. We are coming into her house to clean and paint and fix and make everything organized. She has 6 little children who deserve better. Their mom has chosen to ask for a divorce, which is being fought because she had the audacity. What, you want me to actually help and do things differently in the house? No, I like it the way it's been for the however many years it's been. I don't want you to change what I'm responsible to do. And there's been pushback. And so we've gone in, she was able to recognize after many, many years, it's not like the behavior was new. It just got to a point where she said, no more, no more. And there's been a lot, well, wait a minute, you know how to protect yourself, why should we protect you? We, the state. And she's saying, no, I shouldn't have to protect myself in a marriage. I should be able to make a decision to give my children a healthy life. This is not healthy. We tried everything else, not working, not changing. And so, even well-meaning women in the community say, well, there's 2 sides to every story. No, there aren't 2 sides here. There's an adult woman who is saying, for my health and the health of my children, I need out. We have no right to judge this. We have no right to even have an opinion as to whether this is her life. And if she's made this decision, we as a community have not only a right to support it, but we have an obligation to support her, and her children moving into a healthier future. And that's complicated, especially when the systems, social services and the courts and everything are, figure out how to make peace, figure out how to keep the family together, excuse me, nobody cares what you think. This woman, an adult woman, is saying, I did everything I could do. I am no longer willing to do anything else. I want out. And you now should support us doing that. So what we've come down here, we came down yesterday, and we're here until tomorrow afternoon to help them get a really strong start moving forward. And it's frustrating, and it's, it's making a real cultural shift.
But it's a start, and that's exactly where your story comes in, and the 5th principle of EST as well, to tell. Because if some of us have experienced these things, we can inspire hundreds of other women by sharing these stories with them. And maybe that is also one of the things that can start this cycle of change that we need, where we put a stop to what has happened before us, and we take this pledge that now this will be different.
I'd like to add something to what Amna said, because I totally agree that this is something that has to go into the grade schools. At LLEV, we've created different level courses for different age groups. And on some level, you look at it kind of like vaccinations, right? Because a young kid, a 5 to 7-year-old, is really very dependent on adults. And they have to trust adults because they can't do it on their own. And so there are different tools and techniques that they need to be taught on how to stay safe. And so going from fully dependent and no independence to the flip by the time you get to high school, by the time you're fully independent and you don't even listen to adults anymore. And that's somewhere in the middle around age 12, where you're not fully independent, but you're still not dependent. Like you're not right there yet. They're different skill sets. So we deliver programs that are appropriate for the age group. And think about it. What if we're educating all the boys this way too?
Yes.
What if all the boys and all the girls are getting what is boundary setting? What is boundary respecting? What is consent? Why is it expected? What is appropriate behavior? What is inappropriate behavior? That's what's really special here.
I would like to definitely quote a very recent conversation that I had with Antonella in detail, and I already shared with her that half of our population is women. So for decades, we have been working with them and empowering them, but we have left the other half as it is. So in order to move forward and, give rise to a society where everybody can enjoy the choice to live with freedom, we need to work collectively, and men engagement towards gender-based violence prevention is certainly an extremely integral part of the overall movement. And the earlier we start it, the better it's going to be.
That we've got something special happening. I think that there's a younger generation that's had enough, and they're not going to shut up until they see change. And that's super exciting. Like I said at the beginning, I am very honored to be part of this and part of this conversation in Pakistan. I think that's huge. I think it's hugely important. And if you look at so right now, what's going on in Albania is we've trained, the country of Albania has asked us to get involved in training teachers in schools to bring this into the classroom. And they're now 30 educators who are done the level 1 training, plus another 13 who did it earlier and are further down their experience. But they're going across the country into 12, 13 different cities and making noise about this with support of ministers in the government of Albania. And I think if any country wants to look at a model that's really making a difference, look at Albania. Do what Albania is doing, because that's working and that's going to make a change. And it's also a complicated culture there with deep, misogynistic, patriarchal, oppressive behaviors towards women. And they've said, we want the change. We want the change. And the way to get the change is get this into the school system. And I hope that over the next year or so, we see more countries that step up and say, yes, enough is enough. Time to end this once and for all.
Yes, I am so full of energy and hope at the moment. Thank you so much, Amna and Judith, for such an empowering conversation, because that's all the guidance and the roadmap that we need in order to move forward. We have the next panel coming up, which is also about establishing the importance of self-defense in Pakistan to vis-a-vis violence prevention. So I would encourage you all to join that. And towards the end, I would just like to say, let's write our own stories the way we want them to, because we have the power to do so. And we do that today and now. Thank you so much. And with your permission, I'm going to conclude this panel.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.